Hello everybody, welcome to week 2. Our primary focus this week is on villains, and this is usually a really fun week for discussion because honestly villains are usually a pretty interesting topic. There's a lot of stuff that we can talk about, like what makes a person evil in the first place. Are they actually evil? Maybe they didn't just get enough hugs when they were little, I don't know. Maybe they are just misguided and think they're doing the right thing. So there's any number of reasons for a person to do bad things, especially in literature because we need plot points. There's also a lot of reasons for bad guys doing bad things that you might not have considered while you're doing your reading. So we are going to take a look at several of those this week. The tales do show a lot of characters that we would see as traditionally evil villains. Just this week we've got the witch in Hansel and Gretel, the titular character Bluebeard, and the stepmother in the juniper tree. So the witch is a cannibal, and that's something that is taboo in almost all cultures on the planet. Bluebeard is a serial killer, and so that's never a good thing. And the stepmother, in addition to just being mean to little kids, is also kind of a cannibal. So we're going to go ahead and call her cannibal adjacent. So these are definitely all horrible characters, without a doubt. There's no question that they're just evil people. But I'm going to throw this out there. Are they actually the true villains of their stories, or are there other characters in the stories that we could consider villains instead of these, or in addition to these? So think about that while you're reading, and then just as a reminder, think about the time and society that the story was written in when you're reading that. So if we look at Hansel and Gretel, our textbook says that the story goes straight to the heart of a childhood fear of parental abandonment. But again, what reasons might the parents have had to abandon their children? Are they actually evil? Is there some reason that they might have to do that or need to do that? So consider that when you're reading this story as well. And what about Bluebeard? He's shown to be very different from other men because of his beard mostly, which is literally blue. So that could be a way that some kind of racism or prejudice is written into the story. His actions and the way that he's portrayed do support the idea that people who are other with a capital O are dangerous and should be avoided. But of course, we know now that that is nonsense, and that's just not the way it is. But how would that be relevant to the time that it was written? And how might the story be relevant maybe to modern life? Something that's kind of different in Bluebeard is his wife. She comes from a family that seems to be pretty well off, wealthy maybe a little bit. And they also seem to be fairly close emotionally. That's really the opposite of most fairy tales where the girl is trying to escape a bad family by getting married. Bluebeard's wife has her own personality, and it's different from a lot of other fairy tale women that we encounter. She also remains nameless throughout the story, which is unfortunately not different from most fairy tales. Nameless women is a topic that we'll return to a lot during this class, but for now, just kind of start thinking about it. Why are there so many women without names or identities of their own in these stories? With the juniper tree, it's actually one of my very favorite fairy tales ever, and we get to see a really common stereotype, which is the wicked stepmother. Basically, why are there so many stepmothers? How are mothers depicted in the tale, whether they are biological mothers or stepmothers or some kind of other maternal figure? There's actually a lot that we could unpack in this story. Just off the top of my head, there's nature and nature imagery, biblical allusions, pregnancy and pregnant-related themes. So let's just take a look at that one closely and discuss it in more detail in the classroom because there's really a lot there that we could go over. We also have examples, of characters who are more in line with the trickster figure than true villains. Rumpelstiltskin and Puss in Boots both fit into that category. There really aren't any likable or honorable characters in either story, but that's actually kind of a feature of trickster tales. Rumpelstiltskin tricks the girl into giving things away. Puss kind of manages to fail up at every opportunity. No matter what he does, he usually comes out on top. And trickster figures usually take a role that teaches people what not to do by setting up this sort of anti-example. So it's kind of like, did you see what he just did? Don't do that. So why do you think that they're included sometimes, these trickster figures, instead of a more traditional villain? What kind of lessons do you see in those stories with trickster figures? Are they even different from the lessons that we see in stories with regular villains? So I look forward to seeing your observations about the stories this week. And as always, if you have any questions for me, please post those into the public questions thread in the classroom, or you can send me a text or a private message. And thanks, and I will see you in class.